Hello everybody and welcome to Surfers Paradise, Queensland, Australia for round 2 of the 1995 PPG IndyCar World Series. We are getting ready to race here. I am Guy Hobbs, bringing you live coverage with ESPN, and alongside me in the booth today, two-time Michigan 500 winner Scott Goodyear. Let's take a look at the starting lineup for today's race. Michael Andretti, his 29th career pole. Alongside him, Jacques Villeneuve, who has qualified second 4 times in his young IndyCar career. Row 2, last year's champion, Alonso Jr., and alongside him, teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. In row 3, it is Teo Fabi in his new Forsyth team, and Gil de Ferran coming over from Europe to race in IndyCars. In row 4, Swede Stefan Johansson, and alongside him, young Jimmy Vasser, looking good this season. In row 5, Paul Tracy, the Canadian, had a disaster at Miami, and Mauricio Guzman from Brazil racing in the Pac West entry. In row 6, Scott Pruitt returning to the IndyCar Series on Firestone tires, and the Mexican, Adrian Fernandez, in the Gallas entry.
And in 13th spot, we have American Bobby Rahal, who finished 3rd at Miami last week. Christian Fittipaldi, a great run in Miami, finishing 5th. Robbie Gordon crashed at Miami, hopes to have a better run here. Bachelard is starting in 16th. American Eddie Cheever starting in 17th. American Brian Herda starting for Chip Ganassi in the 18th spot. Danny Sullivan back from a year off with Pac West team starting in 19th. Sam Pedri in 20th. Raul Bozel, not a very good run at Miami and not having a good qualifying here, is starting 21st. And the Honda car of Ribeiro is starting in 22nd. Alio Salazar starting in 23rd. Buddy Lazier starting in 24th. American Dean Hall starting in 25th. And then 26th, the last spot, Japanese driver Matsushita starting at the very rear of the pack.
And just to clear it up for you, this year, Buddy Lazier running in that 64 car, a car that was run by German Christian Danner a couple of weeks ago in Miami. There you see Dean Hall in the Subway car, a new car for him. They are going to be, looks like they're going to be getting this race on the start under yellow. I mean, last year, Scott, this race certainly has given us some surprises since its first run in 1991. Last year, we had rain, it came, it went, it came, when they started, they stopped, they started, they stopped. And after a 2.5-hour delay, we basically got the race started. They cut it by 10 laps. It finished in the dark. It's been known as a track for the first. Michael Andretti won the first win for a Reynard last year on his return from IndyCar. Nigel Mansell won his first IndyCar race here. And John Andretti won the first of these races in Australia. And now another first. Looks like we're going to get this race started under yellow as Eric Bachelard in the number 19 car has had a problem out on the track. There you see the Belgian driver, former Indy Lights runner. He has had a problem out on the track, and they're determined to get this race started because of the problems they've had over the years, and maybe we'll see a yellow flag start.
Well, it's going to be a yellow flag. I'm not sure if it's going to be a single file. I don't think they really took a green. Hopefully we'll see a 2x2 formation here. And you can see he's stopped in the back section of the track here. I guess that's along the Lakeshore Boulevard style track that they have there. But it's unfortunate. As a driver right now, you've built yourself up for the green flag. You come around, and then all of a sudden you see this yellow flag. So you know you've got another lap or two. Obviously, where the car that stalled here, the guys at the front didn't know what was going on, might have heard on the radio. But for sure, you're coming up to the green flag, you're ready to go, the things do stop, and
you got your heartbeat up to about 120, now it's back down to 50.
Well, now, exactly. Now, as a driver, you do many things in the cockpit. You turn the fuel adjustment back to 90% fuel. You're trying to save fuel on these couple of laps here because it allows you to run your next couple of laps a little longer before your fuel stops. As we've discussed before, fuel will probably be somewhere in the window of 19 to 23 laps for your first pit stop, and these guys are trying to cut back on fuel now that you're still underneath yellow, and maybe run those laps a few extra, coming up to maybe 25 or 26. It's very important to run as long as possible under a green flag situation.
This race is scheduled for 67 laps, 180 odd miles or 290 kilometers, depending where you're viewing. The 2 pit stops are scheduled. We may see, of course, more pit stops through the race, and of course the yellow flags will help that situation. Look at the weather conditions. I mentioned rain last year. Currently 78 degrees, gorgeous day at the moment. There is a 15% chance of rain. Some storms about 100 kilometers west of here. Scott, we were talking just off the air previous to the show. One of the problems here in Australia, being by the beach along the shoreline, the wind generally comes off the ocean and blows sand underneath the concrete barriers you see there along the wall as we ride along on board with Robbie Gordon.
Exactly. And you only get that on one spot on this race circuit, basically, and it's coming back on to where the beach meets the racetrack. And if the wind's up, like we've seen the flags blowing a little bit here today, the sand can go underneath those retaining barriers. And certainly you're trying to put the power down coming onto Lakeshore Boulevard there. And then soon enough, you end up spinning the tires.
Looks like the pace car is pulling off, and we're going to get a green flag and get racing here in Australia. Hopefully a clean start as they take the green flag. Round 2 of the 1995 season underway. It looks like Villeneuve able to get the jump, but no. Michael Andretti puts back in.
No, he does, and actually it looked like Villeneuve didn't maybe get a good part of the start there, but he pulled up beside him and passed Michael Andretti, and Michael goes deep into the corner in the first turn always, and almost pushed young Villeneuve out, maybe allowed Alan Jr. to get on the inside there.
Michael Andretti returning to the Newman Haas team, a team he won a championship before with them. He raced with the Ganassi Target team last year. It looks like Junior makes a move around Jacques Villeneuve, unable to pull it off, and may have even made slight contact with the wall. There you see a decent time after he gets back under power. Villeneuve carrying 27 this year. Michael Andretti won this race last year on his return to the IndyCars and has been pretty dominant in all practices and qualifying sessions we've had this season. In fact, he has been quickest in 6 of 8 sessions. There's Gilda Ferran, the Brazilian. Oh, and that could be a penalty for that. We heard that if all 4 go off, there's a penalty there.
That's exactly. They said if you've improved your spot, then you can get a penalty, a stop and go. We'll have to see what the kart officials do with that to see if he thinks that maybe he made that pass and didn't allow him to get through the chicane, and that was an improvement in position. They'll give him a stop and go.
Do you think Villeneuve has a problem? It seems everybody's trying to make a move on him right away.
Well, I think that he got a good start there because he ended up staying in the second position, but I saw back when he and Al Jr. were fighting there a little bit before that it cost Al Jr. a couple of spots, and like you said, he might have tagged the wall. Remember, Michael Andretti tagged the wall trying to pass a back marker back in Miami and ended up costing him the race.
Michael Andretti also tagged the wall, but I would say a very heavy tag on the wall last year. Got very lucky, proving the Reynard a very strong car, but got lucky and hit the tire wall and managed to stay out and continue and lead and win that race. Nigel Mansell also tagged the wall, didn't have the same luck.
Exactly. Michael Andretti had the bonus, I think, of having the tire barrier there. So you're mentioning that Villeneuve looked like he might be having a little bit of a problem. It seems like he's falling back, maybe locking up the brakes a little bit here right now and playing a little bit of protection right at this time. So maybe we'll have to watch and see what goes on here.
And the Italian, Teo Fabi, who in fact is running with what is Jacques Villeneuve's previous team owner, running for Jerry Forsyth this year, has got by, and now we see Alata Jr. in the #1 car able to get by, and that's Emerson Fittipaldi right behind Villeneuve, and behind Fittipaldi, Brian Herter, I believe, in the #8, the #4 entry.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, it looks like he just got the car off balance a little bit, and it's such a very hard thing on a street course because the crown of the road is there to allow the water to run off during the rain type of situations, and right now if you're off track a little bit, you certainly can lock up one wheel front or rear, and it certainly throws the balance of the car off.
Teo Fabi started on the inside of row 3 off to a great start, currently holding down that 3rd position behind Gilda Ferran. And the question is, are we going to see a penalty assessed on Gilda Ferran for running over completely the chicane? And if it is, it'll be a stop and go penalty, basically into the pits, stop him, he can go again, but obviously you lose a lot of time in a lot of places in that situation.
You certainly do, and what's happening right now in the pits is that the kart officials, if they're looking to assess a penalty, will be coming over to the team manager, telling him that's what they're going to do, and there's a bit of debate going on now, a little bit of arguing. The team's obviously wanting to try and get out of the penalty. It's much like you would see in any other sport, but we'll see it. If it's assessed, we'll see him coming in here in the next lap or two.
I think we have word from the pit lane that, in fact, he has been assessed a black flag, and there you see the starter giving him the black flag. Next time round, Gilda Ferran will have to come in, stop, go back out, and he'll join the tail end of the field and have his work cut out for him. Here's a guy who's come from Europe, from Formula 3000, almost won the championship there last year. He picked up this drive, and it was unusual for him to get in this Jim Hall car with the American Pennzoil sponsorship. There's a lot of talk about, well, Gilda Ferran, no one's heard of him over here in America. But he's come over, he's been very quick in testing everywhere he's been. Go to Miami, he's on the pole provisionally, gets bumped in the second round of qualifying, only manages about 3 laps before the transmission let him down. And now here he is again, puts on an aggressive move, and he's going to get black flag and sent back to the back. He's got a big learning curve in the IndyCar racing to learn and to abide by here in this series.
Well, it certainly is a learning curve, and also yesterday he was, I believe, second on the... Oh, we have, it looks like Adrian Fernandez here, caught the tires and has pulled the car into the wall, so that's a shame.
Now, this will probably bring out a full course yellow. And if you remember last year, Nigel Mansell was given a black flag penalty. There you see the Fernandez incident, locked it up going through the turn and then just couldn't make the turn, got onto the marbles. Probably too much damage for him to continue. Just to reflect on that Nigel Mansell incident, he was black flagged, a yellow flag came out, and he actually did a stop and go penalty under a yellow flag situation, and they let him go with it. And we were all sitting here going, oh, I think that's wrong. And as it happened, he got away with it at one time, but they're going to be much more careful as Gilles de Ferrand is going to have to pay his penalty before this caution flag.
Well, he's going to have to do it underneath the green, because essentially after that race last year, the drivers all got together and turned around and said that we have to make sure that we get our penalties underneath the green situation, because it was not correct in what happened with Nigel Mansell. I mean, he took advantage of it, and he very well should have. Great in-car camera shot from Bobby Rahal.
That's just one of the many in-car cameras we have for you today. Michael Andretti also has a couple of cameras. Robbie Gordon, Brian Herter, and Paul Tracy carrying cameras for us. We give you great live coverage on ESPN of round 2 of the 1995 PBG IndyCar World Series. Do you think Gilles de Ferrand coming new into the season, new into this IndyCar, maybe just being a bit too aggressive in his first couple of races?
Well, I think that he has a lot that he wants to prove over here, and he certainly wants to make himself known in IndyCar racing, get himself established. And I think the Jim Hall team has had a rough couple of years. They've had some good sponsorship with the Pennzoil team. They probably haven't had some good finishes. I think they've only won one race, and you talked about first before. And it was the first race that they went back to motor racing back in 1991 with John Andretti, and they won here in Australia.
As now we're being picked up by the pace car, they have decided to go full course yellow to pick up Adrian Fernandez, number 10, the Gallus entry with the Tecate Mexican beer sponsorship in Quaker State, running the Reynard, the Lolas, pardon me, this year. They
changed
ran
back
the Reynard.
to Lola.
Yeah. Do you know why they did? They did well with the Reynards last year, and the Reynard would appear to be the car to go with this year, but the Gallus team switched back to the Lola.
Well, at the end of every season, or basically almost in August, a lot of the manufacturers come by and start to speak to all the teams and give them specifications on the new chassis for the next year, as the engine manufacturers do also. And I suspect probably just the people at Gallus Racing decided that they wanted to have an opportunity to maybe think that the Lola was going to be a better car. And as you saw, a lot of people changed from Lola to Reynard, so it just basically depends on what the team believes in. If the team believes that the numbers that they see from the wind tunnel, etc., are going to be better for a Lola versus a Reynard, maybe that's why they changed back. And I guess there's also the thing to say that a lot of people are now in Reynards. If you're one of the only few select people that are running a Lola, maybe you'll get better service from the Lola manufacturer.
Now, there's a little bit of worry, because what we've seen, a lot of the engineers, such as Nigel Bennett, was with Lola. He came to Penske and he designed the Penske chassis, and the one he designed immediately went off to win. Lola came into the series and they pretty much put March out of business in the IndyCar series. Bruce Ashmore left Lola and has gone to Reynard, and now I wonder if it's going to backfire on Lola, where we could see Reynard push them out of the series in the long run. Of course, someone who's going to be fighting that very, very hard is Carl Haas, the team owner, who is the sole distributor and importer for the Lola chassis into the country.
Exactly, and we're seeing one of the cart workers there falling, and that's all the crowd responding to that.
Oh, yeah,
getting back
Aussie
to Carl,
crowd. They've
the
had
Aussie
a few
crowd
hours in the stand. Yeah.
Oh, they've had, I'm sure, a lot of the good Aussie beer, and they're having an opportunity to enjoy some of the sun down there too. Getting back to the different manufacturers, though, I think what we're seeing now is an opportunity for Carl Haas to run only a few of the cars on the track this year, in the sense that Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti are running Lolas. You've got the Tecate car now looking at a situation here with an opportunity for them to get back to the Lola grid too.
Just to update you, you talk about the international flavor here at the Australia race, an international event. The Lola Reynard, we have 12 Lolas, 11 Reynards, and 3 Penskes. We have 10 countries represented by 15 international drivers this year, and we have 3 different engine manufacturers. We have 1 Honda represented here in Australia this weekend, 18 Ford engines, and 7 Mercedes. And they've come up with a good idea, I think, this year for the IndyCar series. They've now started a Nations Cup. So for the international drivers, they're awarding points on where you finish, and that point goes towards your country total. They've also started a Constructors' Cup for the chassis constructions. Here we see Gilles de Ferrand running over, completely skipping the chicane. And there was a rule that said if all 4 tires go over the chicane, he will be assessed a penalty. And he has been assessed that penalty, but he has not been in to take it yet.
As we saw, the black flag was being waved just as we almost went to a yellow situation here on the full course yellow. I would suspect that once we've gone back to green, that he'll have to come in and pay the assessment here for his penalty. He'll have to come in underneath the green situation, a stop and go, probably merge back in somewhere in the middle of the pack. But, you know, at the very beginning of a race, a very costly mistake that's going to cost him a lot of spaces on the racetrack.
And he's going to have his work cut out for him with overtaking. Certainly not easy here in Australia. Just get back to the Constructors' Cup they've started now for the chassis manufacturers. They also have the Manufacturers' Championship for the engine representatives, and that Nations Cup for all these drivers. If, for example, you are from Brazil, you win the race, then you score 20 points for Brazil. And then no other Brazilians can score, but they keep going down till you get the highest amount. And Scott Goodyear, being Canadian, you will be able to represent Canada. We just mentioned Honda briefly. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Let's just take a look, a review. We mentioned at the top of the show, John Andretti won his first IndyCar and last IndyCar race here, and the first re-race for the Hall team. Fittipaldi won in 1992. Then Nigel Mansell came here, first IndyCar race. He got the pole, and then he won the race. Michael Andretti returned in 1994 to the IndyCar Series, won the race, won the first ever race for Reynard in IndyCar, keeping up their record. We just talked about engines for a moment, and one Honda here, Andrea Ribeiro, running that Honda engine, a new all-aluminum engine this year. And the good news is, Scott, we're going to see you representing Canada and racing for Honda.
Yes, we'll be starting at the Indianapolis 500. We might do a couple of races after that, but right now we're just going to sign up and do Indianapolis for Steve Horn's Tasman team with the Honda-powered car. And it's a brand new engine. It's an all-aluminum engine now, the first time that I think Honda's built something like that for IndyCar racing. They've been on a steep learning curve since their involvement last year with Bobby Rahal. So I'm looking forward to it and getting the opportunity to work with Honda, number one, and also with Steve Horn. I think that he's one of the great team owners right now in IndyCar racing, has been involved for many years, and was one of the people involved with the True Sports chassis and with the True Sports team, and has been involved with Bobby Rahal, won the Indianapolis 500 and won the championship 3 times with Bobby, so he has a lot of experience.
So someone you're going to be watching very closely today as this race unfolds is car number 31. Andre Ribeiro has come up from the Indy Light Series as we get ready to go green flag racing once again here in Australia. Look at the move on the inside.
Al Jr., and he certainly did a great move there. The question is, did he take a move and collect the position before the green flag was waved? He almost chased the pace car into the pit lane, so maybe we'll see another penalty assessed here very shortly.
And it's not so much before the green flag was waved, but actually before he got to the green flag.
Well, now it's on a restart, so as long as you see, or you don't even have to see the green flag, as long as the green flag is waving, you can be told over your radio by your pits that it's green and you can pass anywhere on the race circuit. My only question is whether the green flag was physically waving at that time because the pace car had not physically gone off the racetrack.
There you see the view at the back of Michael Andretti's car. Gilda-Ferrand right behind him in the yellow Reynard. Gilda-Ferrand using the Mercedes engine, running in the Rookie Championship this year for Jim Hall. Great view out the back of Michael Andretti's car. What a little puff of smoke.
Well, it could just be the bottom of the car touching the road, and when the cars are full of fuel, we've got 40 gallons of methanol on board, and the cars hit the ground. You see a little puff of the wood underneath of the car actually coming up through. And, you know, here's the situation we're talking about before. Michael doing just a great job getting through the chicane here. This is a new chicane that we talked about before, is that you have an opportunity to get through the chicane very quickly, but you're going slower than you did last year. Last year you only had a left and a right, and now you have a left, right, and another left following up with that. So I think we're in a situation here where you're trying to slow the cars down. A lot of accidents happened there last year, and Robbie Gordon, if you can recall, did a big accident there last year and was very lucky to walk away.
And of course that's added 1/10 of a mile to the circuit. So the speeds were supposedly to be down, but not at all. In fact, Michael Andretti set a lap record. Now you see Gilda-Ferrand coming in to pay his penalty, and also, as you pointed out, Scott Goodyear, Alonso Jr. made that pass before the green flag was waving. Both of them get stop-and-go penalties. Need a clean, good start out of here. Don't stall it. They are revving like mad as they pull out of pit lane.
We're going to have Al Jr. actually getting through his stop and go quicker than DeFerrand, and so he's now picked up a position, but they've also lost probably about 5 or 6 overall.
I think they pulled out behind Alicio Salazar in the number 7 entry. Oh, right in front of Alicio Salazar. So they should be in approximately 15th, 16th position.
And a penalty at this time of the race really hurts you because the pack is still very much close together. It's not like when your race is half over or 3/4 over, the field is spread out. In this situation now, especially after a restart, everybody is very, very close. You go into the pits only for a moment, as we saw here, and you're bound to lose just so many spots.
The other thing, too, of course, to be careful, you go in for that stop-and-go penalty. When you come out of the pits, and obviously you floor it, you've got to be careful. 80 miles an hour speed limit in pit lane. Again, today being enforced a new, well, not a new rule they've had in IndyCar for a couple of years. They'll give you
I will be at Indianapolis, so it's a return for Firestone at Indianapolis, and I guess Scott Goodyear will be driving on Firestones, and that's the team who's using Firestone.
It's going to make it interesting for the announcers with Goodyear on Firestone. We pointed out you can't go over 80 miles an hour in the pit lane. Alonso Jr. is being assessed a penalty. He's going 91 miles per hour on his exit of the pit lane after the stop and go. He's going to have to come back in and have another stop-and-go penalty.
And that is so frustrating. I can remember in 1993, we were all battling up the front in the top 3 or 4 spots. I left the pits, actually was with Al Jr., got him in the pit lane, left, and ended up being assessed to stop and go for speeding. Came back in. I was so upset over that, and your adrenaline's going. You talked about your heartbeat earlier on. Left the pit lane again and assessed another stop and go for speeding again. So by the end of that day, I was pretty much an unhappy guy.
And it's one of the toughest rules in racing. Here we are racing, and you're given a speed limit. It's just like, oh.
You've got about 6 or 7 guys over the wall. The guys are going by 80 miles an hour. We've seen problems there again at Long Beach. Michael Andretti, I believe it was, with Emerson Fittipaldi, made contact in the pit lane a couple of years ago, and it could have been near disaster. The car could have actually gone up and over the pit wall, back onto the racetrack, or even back into where the crew members were.
Here's Alonso Jr., the defending champion, 8 wins last year, 7 poles. So far, not a good year for him. Now back in for another penalty, and he's going to make sure he keeps it under 80 miles an hour this time. As he pulls out, he's going to go right to the back of the pack and certainly have his work cut out for him. You mentioned it for safety, and I had the opportunity once to work in a pit for the World Sports Cars for John Fitzpatrick Racing in a 6-hour enduro in Italy, and it was one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever had, and certainly not something I would like to do again. Michael Andretti continuing to lead Alonso Jr. now at the back of the pack after that second penalty.
And that is very strange because Al generally doesn't make mistakes like that, number one. Last year, everything went his way in the season. I mean, strange things would go on. He'd always come out in the right end of things. And in this situation here, I mean, 2 quick penalties very quickly, and it's going to hurt his chances for good points today.
And he's never done well here in Australia, actually. As you saw out of the race, Eric Bashbar, who's returning to the IndyCar Series, hoping to put together a whole season. He never even took the green flag. And Adrian Fernandez, the young Mexican leader in the 1995 championship, if you can believe it, after that win last 2 weeks ago in Miami, a win that basically was won on pit lane. He didn't overtake Guzman for the lead, but he got in and out of the pits quicker on a regular pit stop.
And I remember reading something last week or two when they're talking about how good that pit stop went for the Barry Green team. That team actually does a pit stop contest in their shop twice a week, so they can actually be up to speed come race weekend. So they're actually practicing during the week, much like a driver would like to do with his race car.
Looks like we've got a big problem on the 64, the Buddy Lazier car. That I mentioned earlier, Christian Danner normally drives that car. Lazier's in this weekend. It's a 93 Lola, very old car, but running with the Ford Project Indy. Andres Lieberle is one of the owners. They've run with Zach Speed in Formula 1. Here you see a replay of him, Buddy Lazier, having those problems.
Yeah, just entering into the chicane there, it looks like the left rear wheel caught the curbing or maybe even the wall and put the car a little bit askew, and he didn't have control of it for the second half of the chicane.
And how about this guy, Jimmy Vasser, mid-off-season, looked like he was done, didn't look like he was going to have a ride. Suddenly they announced he's going to be racing for the Ganassi team, and obviously having a great day here today. He's currently in 8th position, had a good qualifying run, looked quick in Miami, not as good a result as he would have liked. In fact, at Miami he finished 8th, but looking good here in Australia.
Very much so, and it looked like they just flashed up on the screen that his best finish was 3rd in Australia before, so this track probably agrees with him very well. And I think he would like to come away with some good points here and good finish. And you can recall that maybe even last year he had a good run going even at Phoenix. So he likes that track. That's the next track on this series that we go to. So he'd be looking to collect some points here to get ready for Indianapolis too.
And I said he was 8th. He's actually currently 4th, right behind Villeneuve. And it looks to me like Fabi is making up a little ground on Michael Andretti. That is poor Tracy, you see, right behind Jimmy Vasser.
Yes, and Paul's obviously after trying to get a good run here too. He has had some problems in Miami, but he qualified 9th here. Generally not where Paul qualifies. He's usually up in the first couple of rows, but he also needs to come away from here with some good points.
I saw an interesting quote from Paul Tracy as we watched Jimmy Vasser make his way around the track. Paul Tracy switched from the Penske team from last year. He was left without a ride, went to the Newman Haas team to run in the Lola. The first Lola he drove was a 94 Lola, and his first impressions were, uh-oh, what have I done getting in this 94 Lola? Now that obviously they're in the 95 Lola, they've done a lot of testing in the off-season for this type of circuit, and so far it's proven to work out pretty well for them, as he and Michael have been quickest everywhere they've gone. They just haven't had the result they would have liked after Miami.
Very much so, and I can recall those quotes that Paul was talking about, that the car wasn't maybe as good as the Penske was, and then there's been some drivers that had an opportunity to drive a Lola last year, also drive a 94 Reynard at the end of the season, then drive a 95 Reynard, and they said that the 94 Reynard was much better than the 94 Lola, but the 95 Reynard was much better than all of them combined. And I think that's why we saw the big transition from all the Lola runners in 94 going to Reynards in 1995, because a lot of people were dissatisfied with their 94 Lola cars.
As I say, there's 11 Reynards here today, 12 Lolas, and just the 3 Penskes, the 2 Penske team, and then of course Stephanie Johansson in the Bettenhausen team. Jimmy Vasser had a good run at Phoenix last year. I think he finished, or 2 years ago, finished 3rd at Phoenix, had a great run in Milwaukee, and now having another great run for the Ganassi team. It's actually Ganassi Hayhoe. Jim Hayhoe didn't want to lose his franchise and kind of teamed up with Ganassi. Last year, Ganassi ran Gugelmin and Michael Andretti, but ran them as 2 separate teams. So 2 separate enterprises, didn't share information, didn't test together. This year, Ganassi has said they're going to run a 2-car team, but they've also got the input of Jim Hayhoe on that team, who was a big Jimmy Vasser fan, and that's who Vasser ran for last year.
Very much so, and Jimmy Vasser, as you said, is doing just a great job here. His teammate Brian Herta over the last 2 races has not fared so well. We sort of thought that maybe we'd see Brian Herta up in front of Jimmy Vasser, but at this point in time, I think we've got Vasser as being shown here in 4th. He's doing just a great job, brings along STP sponsorship onto the target car, and I think between the 2 of those guys working together, they're both young Americans, that I think that they should have a great chance of finishing up in the top 10 in the series at the end of the year.
Scott Pruitt currently running 8th, the fastest of the Firestone cars. Of course, he is the official Firestone team entry of the Pat Patrick team. They did a lot of off-season testing and a lot of testing last year, and Firestone have really come on and challenged Goodyear in the tire war that we're seeing develop in 1995.
Very much so, and that's all going to come to a head at the Speedway, at the Indianapolis 500, because that is the biggest race in IndyCar for sure. It's run by USAC, the United States Auto Club, and Firestone is coming back into IndyCar racing because of Indianapolis. And I think that they're going to look for a top finish there, and obviously try and sit on the front row. We hope that maybe we can help them do that.
I was going to say, you wish you were doing that. Of course, Scott, you had the closest finish in the Indianapolis 500, drove all the way up from 32nd on the grid to lose by a couple of hairs to Al Unser Jr. A great Indy 500 for you. Obviously, a couple more seconds, you'd have loved it.
Well, we certainly would have. I mean, you sometimes relive that and replay that in your mind. And I have to tell you that recently I was traveling through the New York airport, and there's a company now that has a picture of that finish in a frame, and there's a little box in the bottom of it. And you go up and you push the button on the box, and it comes out, and it's the last call of the last lap of that race. And so somebody has very happily bought that for me and put it up in my office. So every time somebody walks into my office, they push that for me, so I relive it many times during the day. I think I'm waiting for the battery to wear it.
Hang on to that memory dearly there. Michael Andretti, our current leader, as we are on about lap 18 of 65 here at Australia, round 2 of the 1995 season. A bit of a bashing. You've taken quite a severe beating on this track, this tough street circuit. And as you can see, with all the concrete barriers, no room for mistakes here at Australia, as we now ride with poor Tracy, who is currently listed in the 5th position behind Jimmy Vasser. Paul Tracy made that switch from the Penske team to the Newman Haas. He tested the Formula One last year. We may still see him make the Formula One ranks. I think it's something he's keen to do.
I think there was just some mention of that in the paper in the past couple of weeks here in America.
Let's take a ride on board with Paul Tracy and listen to his engine as we circulate around this track here in Australia.
And those engines are turning at about 14,000 RPM.
Through the gears of a tight left-hander.
Very quickly going up in here, and now you're going to end up coming back on the front straightaway. Very long straightaway, probably up to about 190 miles an hour as you pass the pits, which will be coming up here on your left-hand side.
He equaled Nigel Mansell for 5 wins the year that Nigel Mansell won the championship. Tracy couldn't win, but he had as many wins. And as I say, historically, generally gets off to a bad start in the season. And the proof of that was 2 weeks ago in Miami. On the 3rd lap of the race, he had a shunt at the chicane.
And that's very true. But the thing that we have to always remember in the first couple of races of the year, that as I was drilled into my head many, many times by team owner Derek Walker, that if you cannot win the race, take home points.
Go for the points.
We see Bobby Rahal do that many, many times. He did it at Miami, came away with 3rd place points, and he'll be just chipping away here today. And at the end of the day, you'll probably see him collect some more good points. And, you know, he's just the master of sitting back and keeping the car underneath him and keeping it straight, not hitting the walls and collecting points. He's always there at the championship at the end of the year.
And he mentioned Derek Walker, team owner, of course, to Robbie Gordon. And Robbie Gordon really having a disastrous weekend so far, being down in the practice time, didn't have a good qualifying run, and we have not seen him in the top 10 yet. So we could see, of course, one of those famous Robbie Gordon charges later as this race unfolds. We expect the first pit stops in a pit stop window around lap 19 through about lap 23. So we should be coming up on pit stops any moment. And that, of course, can then determine the strategy for the rest of the race.
It certainly can, and pit stops play just a big part in races, obviously. And the driver's doing everything he can in the car, but it's really up to your crew. And drivers will tell you all the time that you're not the only guy that's there on the team. You maybe see the driver on TV, but there's 15 guys behind you that are working on the team very, very hard. And a team, if they can get you in and out, as we saw at Miami, they can win the race for you.
Emerson Fittipaldi currently behind Paul Tracy. We'll be right on board once again with him through the left-hander. He's making up some ground on Jimmy Vasser, but Jimmy Vasser actually doing a great job.
Looks like Jimmy Vasser is really getting out of the corners quite well. Paul's maybe getting into the turns a little bit quicker. It's one thing to catch the car in front of you, but it's another thing to be able to pass the guy.
Vasser, of course, is in the Reynard, and Paul Tracy here in the Lola with the Ford engine. The Ford engine they've been able to develop over the off-season. They made the plenum slightly smaller, so they're able to get more air in there, a better turbo mix, which really gives them less turbo lag, so they're able to get the power down a little quicker. And better fuel efficiency we're seeing from the Ford engine, which is also, of course, a valuable point when it comes to pit stops. Some guys may have to stop on lap 19. If you can stay out a couple extra laps, makes a big difference.
A huge difference, especially when we were talking before, like the very beginning of the race when we start underneath yellow, the guys are trying to save fuel. And here we see Paul Tracy just passing some lap traffic. Actually, I think he just got past Jimmy Vasser.
Yeah.
That was a very good move. It looks like Jimmy's slowing down, actually.
Yeah, because Tracy suddenly seems to be able to pull away from him very quickly, so maybe Vasser is suffering a problem in his Reynard. He's running the Reynard, but also with the Ford engine. There you see Fittipaldi as he comes into the picture. Emmo's won this race before and obviously would love to win it again. Very big name in Australia. He's been racing there for over the years, a 25-year career, of course, raced in Formula One in Australia, and back again. And the fans are really take to Emerson Fittipaldi as he gets past Jimmy Vasser now too. So Vasser obviously suffering from trouble.
Some trouble. Also maybe some fuel. We talked about fuel window just a moment ago, and we may see a situation here where he just might be on that fuel window and the car might be starving for fuel, because it seems like every time he comes out of a turn he's not being able to pick the speed up quite quickly enough.
Maybe conserving his fuel, try and make it round this one last lap to get back to the pit lane where the team can service him very quickly, change all 4 tires, add 40 gallons of methanol and have him back out underway in 12 seconds or so.
Isn't that amazing? You wish your service station could do it that quickly.
Emerson Fittipaldi, who has talked about retirement, but at the same time, every time he talks about it, he says he's not really considering it. And we could definitely see him, obviously, through this season. I think one more season for sure, possibly 1997, but I think you may see him step down then and let young nephew, Christian Fittipaldi, who had a great run. And there, Buddy Lazier, once again in the 64 car, the Andres Liebely entry, or Project Indy entry. We saw him have problems earlier when he missed his corner, and now you'll see from the replay, locking up at the back. Maybe brake bias is a problem. He's just getting into a spin in that chicane. A local yellow flag as Jacques Villeneuve goes through, and the rest of the field will come by. Could see pit stops coming up any moment now. Well,
we're right in that window that we talked about now, and I think that we might even end up seeing a full course yellow here if they cannot get the car removed in a safe fashion. That's what CART likes to do. And any time on a street course that they cannot get the car moved off, it looks like now hopefully we'll be able to push it aside and without any delay of the race. But we must be in that fuel window. I suspect you're going to see a lot of guys trying to make some pit stops right now, especially if the yellow comes out, because it's just time saved.
And of course, if the yellow comes out, if a full course yellow comes out, it really then depends on the leader. If the leader goes in, you'll go in. If the leader stays out, then you're attempting to stay out or come up with it. That's when everything, suddenly brains go into overdrive in pit lane. What do we do? What do we do?
And it happens so very, very quickly, not only on a track like this, but also on an oval track, for instance, a 1 mile track. And you almost have to go off of impulse. And if you can't see the leader sometimes, you don't know if he's ducked in. You rely on your crew to maybe tell you if the leader is in. But there again, these guys have to make their own guesstimation about where they are on fuel.
Emerson Fittipaldi carrying the number 2 for finishing second in the championship last year. 1, 2, and 3 the Penske's finished. They had, I think it was 6, 1, 2, 3 finishes between them in the season. And they are continuing to struggle with that team. It would appear they've got a new Mercedes engine, the Ilmore Mercedes engine, in the Penske chassis, and it would appear they are having the toughest time getting the chassis to work with that Mercedes engine compared to the Reynard Mercedes and the Lola Mercedes.
I think there's one interesting point here is that last year, the very first race, which was here in Australia, the Penske cars were not that competitive, but they got more competitive as the season wore on, and obviously very competitive at Indianapolis, and then they were on a roll from there. They were not competitive at the first race this year, which was at Miami. They come to the second event, and all of a sudden they're number 3 and 4 on the grid. So it doesn't take them long to be able to respond to any problems they have.
Well, Roger Penske, of course, one of the best guys preparing teams, running teams. He runs the IndyCar team, also runs the Winston Cup team. Rusty Wallace gets more wins in that series than anybody else. Michael Andretti, you see, leading this race. The Penskes are now up to 4th and 5th, or 5th for Emerson Fittipaldi. Paul Tracy currently in 4th. We're going to see pit stops. We're on lap 20 right now. I think we're going to see pit stops this time by. Vassar has gone into the pits after having his problems. We pointed out, we thought maybe fuel, but Michael Andretti continued to lead, and with a healthy lead at this point too.
He certainly seems like he's pulling away from the rest of the guys now. For a long time we saw him just keep about a 4 or 5 car length in front of Teo Fabi, but now it looks like he's got about a 20 car length, and here comes Fabi into the pit, so the pit stops are now starting.
Teo Fabi, the first of the leaders in. Villeneuve stayed out and is going to fill up in that second position. Of course, they've still got to make their stops. As Fabi comes in, we understand that it's a transmission problem with the Jimmy Vasser team. So he is probably done for the day. Teo Fabi, a quick stop there as they get that fuel in. These tires they brought over, interesting story on those, Scott. From Miami, Goodyear shipped over about 2,000 tires. They shipped them on a plane. It cost them $100 a tire. Before Miami, in fact, 4 weeks ago, they shipped over the remainder of the 2,000 tires that they shipped over. It took them 4 weeks to get here, but it cost them a lot less than $100 a tire.
It's amazing how much it costs just to move this series from one racetrack to another, and obviously in America they can do it all by truck, but this one race that we compete at here in Australia is very, very cost-consuming and obviously time-consuming, and that's why they'd like to see another IndyCar race in Asia somewhere like Japan, so we can come over here and do 2 events.
Do 2 while they're here. Obviously string them together. They've changed the schedule this year in IndyCar to try and get the racing more concise into a smaller time period in the summer, so it doesn't conflict with other major sports. There in the background you see Buddy Lazier's car, so it doesn't conflict with other major sports in North America. They've also tried to get the schedule so that the trucks aren't going across the country all the time, from the West Coast back to the Midwest, to the East Coast back to the West Coast. They're trying to put the races together so that all the Midwest races are together, save some money for the teams and travel time. But come July and June, We have 8 races in a row every weekend in June and July, so busy summer season for the IndyCar Series this year.
And I think that's when you're going to start to see the larger teams that have a lot of resources behind them probably start to excel, and maybe that's where the championship will start to be molded at that point in time. And the people that have test teams, a separate car, separate crew, might turn around and be able to get underneath some of the problems they might have in their current race cars and maybe get through that and be able to come out on top of it. And that's the sort of thing that I think is going to help to win a championship.
And it's going to be really tough, too, on a lot of the mechanics and crew having to put those 8 weeks together. And, of course, the biggest change in the schedule is this year we're running 5 races before the Indianapolis 500. Normally, we just had the Australia race, Long Beach and Phoenix, and then straight to Indy. Now we've added the Miami race, and we also have the Nazareth date, which has been bumped all the way up from late in the season to early. In fact, it was the last race, an oval race before going to Indy.
That's right, and in one sense that's good because you get another chance to run on an oval track before you go to Indianapolis, but there again it's very hard to accrue. And to go back to what you were saying about having 8 races in a row, the last one of those 8 races in a row is the Michigan 500, which is a very punishing race. The track has been repaved this year in the Michigan facility. It's a 2-mile high bank track. We've seen speeds there of 236, 238 miles an hour on average, and the qualifying record I think is held by Michael Andretti at 234 miles an hour. Everybody is worried with the speeds now increasing all the time with these cars that with the track repaved will probably be up to over 240 miles an hour average on a high bank 2-mile track.
Wow, and that's certainly a racetrack that we know you love, of course, a 2-time winner there, and Roger Penske loves it because he owns the facility, as he does Nazareth up in Pennsylvania. We'll be going there in just a few weeks and, of course, have live coverage for you on ESPN as Michael Andretti continues to lead. Surprised he hasn't made his stop yet. Taylor Farley has made his 22 laps in the book. We mentioned briefly that the Ford engine does seem to be good on economy, but to stretch out those 2 extra laps and still be able to lead this strongly and obviously run it very lean is great news for Ford, as we now see Emerson Fittipaldi come in for his pit stop. The Penske team going to work on that. Doesn't look like they're making any aerodynamic adjustments, changing all 4 tires, obviously refueling. The card official watching, yeah, a little bit of a turn on the front wing, maybe a little more downforce. There you see Scott Pruitt in the number 20 on the Firestone tires come in for his pit stop. Didn't go out in the morning warm-up this morning. We're not quite sure why. Now the rest of the clan come in. Gilda Ferran. Also, we see Brian Herder make his stop. I think that's Hiro Matsushita getting back out on the track, having made his stop.
Such an important time right now because what happens is the crews are obviously changing the tires. They're adding 40 gallons of methanol and trying to get the car back out at least in front of the people that it came in front of, and at the very minimum you try and get at least 1 or 2 more positions for your driver because it's easier sometimes to pass in the pits than it is on the race circuit.
Michael Andretti comes up alongside Alicio Salazar, a 3-time IMSA winner last year, coming through some of the back markers, and he is surely going to be coming in for his pit stop now, as the rest of the leaders have done so. And you mentioned getting the car back out on the track and trying to pick up a couple of positions. Looked like the Herder team had a pretty good stop going, but then the right front jackman had a bit of a trouble getting the pneumatic gun off the wheel, as now Michael Andretti does come into pit lane, and here you'll see the Newman-Haas team go to work.
And this is just such an important time, as we were discussing before. You get in and out very efficiently, and as we talked about before, make sure you flip that toggle switch on the dash so you don't go over the speed limit.
There you see, changing all 4. Michael himself takes on a little replenishing too, with some Gatorade. See if they make any aerodynamic changes to that car. I don't imagine they will. It seems to be running so well for them. No, they don't, and he is back out underway in a very quick stop of 13.7 for Michael Andretti.
And you see Michael's pitted right. Oh, he locks the tires up there. The tires are cold now. They've been sitting in the pit lane. We do not have tire warmers in IndyCar racing like they do in Formula 1. So the tires are cold, and it takes a lap or 2 to get them back up to working temperature. Such a great job, as we were talking about before, ever since he's come over here with the IndyCar circuit. And I think we're going to see him running up in the championship throughout the whole season, and probably he's going to be a contender for Rookie of the Year.
Of course, that's a $50,000 payout if you win the Rookie of the Year. Last year's winner, Jacques Villeneuve, took a victory in picking up that Rookie of the Year honors. There's Eric Bachelard, who was out of this race early. We didn't think he took the green flag, but now he's locking them up, going to that left-hander, getting into a big spin. Obviously trying to make up for lost time for the beginning of the race, maybe trying to go for the overachiever award a little bit.
Well, he could have also just come out of the pits. Those tires could have been cold, as we discussed before, and not had the adhesion on the road, and just bring the car around, and the car spun out on him. We got a full tank of fuel. The car is heavier, cold tires. It happens very quickly.
There you can see a big mark on the nose of Gilles Dufresne, on the left front part of the nose, where obviously he tucked that car just underneath one of the tires of the guy in front of him and has scraped it, but doesn't seem to have done any damage to the wings at all, so he should be okay as far as that is concerned. But you just get an idea of just how close these guys run in racing conditions.
Talk about being close. The competition the last couple of years has been getting stiffer and stiffer, and I think we're probably into a season this year that you're going to see multiple race winners, whereas we only had a few last year. Dean Hall in the 99 car, the Subway sandwich car, looks like he's just off course. Seems like a lot of people are maybe coming out on cold tires and getting the car out from underneath them.
Dean Hall, of course, a guy who is used to speed. He's used to be a skier, then he became a speed skier, getting up to speeds of 130 miles per hour going down slopes in Colorado. Got hooked on the racing, got hooked on racing, went into Toyota Atlantic races, raced in that, and has made the step up. He's raced in IndyCar previously, but now has tried to put together a full season and running in the Dick Simon entry in the Subway sponsored car, the Dale Coyne entry, pardon me.
Just as we were watching here, it looks like Dufresne has actually just clipped the wall with the left side of the car there, just going through one of those chicanes. Just momentarily there, he just brushed the wall quite quickly, and as we talked about before, Michael brushed the wall in Miami and it cost him some suspension damage. It didn't look like Dufresne hit that hard, but then again, it might be something to watch.
In the background there, you see Alicio Salazar making his debut, not his debut, but his first full run in the IndyCar series from Chile, one of the biggest stars in sports in Chile, not having a season at the moment that he would like. He's got all new equipment. Obviously, these are all new tracks to him, and the IndyCars are new to him. As Michael Andretti continues to lead this race after making his stop, a very quick 13.7. We understand that Christian Fittipaldi is now out of the race with a transmission problem. This track tough on transmission, Scott?
It seems to be. Characteristically, it has been over the past couple of years, and I think because you have 3 long straightaways here that you're going from a lower gear up to the top gear, and you're very punishing on the gearbox, and through the chicanes, which are very quick also, and from second up to 5th gear, up to 190 miles an hour, about 3 times per lap, and then back down through the gearbox. And I think it's also important to point out that this is now a transmission that you have to go up and down through each and every gear. It's not a situation where it was a few years ago where you could go from 5th to 2nd to 1st going into a turn. You have to go 5th, 4th, 3, 2, 1 with these new style gearboxes.
And a new style, of course, it's a sequential gearbox, but unlike Formula One in the comparison, as Michael's visor is up, as he's slowing, I wonder if we have a full course yellow.
It looks like we probably have a full course yellow, so there must be some activity on the track somewhere.
Just getting back to that comparison with the Formula One, it's a sequential gearbox in the Indy cars, which basically means the gears are all in line as opposed to having to go through a gate system. But it's not, there's certainly no electronically aided gear changes, and none of the flippers or
the paddles, as they call them,
various names from that you see on the steering wheels in Formula One. It's still a gear lever which you have to physically shift. And if you remember last year, a few of the incidents we saw for the drivers were getting hurt by the gear linkage along the side of the car, getting hit on their leg. And just to update you, it is a full course yellow, and the reason for this is the 64 car of Dean Hall, pardon me, the 99 car of Dean Hall, who is out on the track, and they're going to try and get him restarted and out of the way. This will, of course, bring the field all together, although, as you see, they won't necessarily run in order that they are racing, but they will at least get closer to each other. There you see Michael Andretti, our leader, Teo Fabi is in second, but behind Alessandro Zampedri, and then Jacques Villeneuve behind him.
And then it looks like Paul Tracy is running in 4th, so what the guys behind Michael are going to try and do on this restart is to make sure that you get past Zampedri so they don't allow Michael to get away. And this is a leader of a race. Michael right now did not want to see a yellow, obviously. He wanted to be able to stretch his lead more than anything else.
Now, Alonso Jr. has come in and made his pit stop. We didn't see him come under regular situation pit stop. He had, of course, a stop-and-go penalty, so he had 1 lap less at high speed than everybody else, and he's been able to stay out there and now pit under a yellow flag situation, which should help him.
Should help him, and he's pulled back out just in front of Dufresne, so he's going to have a good battle on the restart here. And these guys are obviously trying to get every position they can for points.
These are the 2 guys, of course, that both had a black flag penalty. Alice Jr.'s came for overtaking before the green flag was waving. Then he got a second one for speeding in pit lane. Gil de Ferran got a black flag stop-and-go penalty for going straight over the chicane, and with all 4 tyres as opposed to just 2 or even going around it. So they both suffered penalties. They're running in about 16th and 15th position right now. There you see the number 64 of Buddy Lazier again in a 1993 Lola. An old Lola, but with a new Ford engine, but struggling way at the back of the pack. He's had a couple of spins already. Now he's underway. He was blocking the track earlier, as is Dean Hall out there somewhere. He is backfired underway again, and we should get the green flag racing again. Just the second yellow of the day. We had one earlier.
See on the yellow flag situations, a lot of the guys weaving in and out. We have an opportunity to see Robbie Gordon make an appearance for the first time. It looks like Brian Herta making a run on the inside of Matsushita. All these guys are trying to make up time right now as we're discussing when the race has just begun to run again, for the simple reason that it's a great opportunity to get past guys when the pack is close together.
And there you see, right at the end of the field, Alonso Jr. and Gil de Ferran running at the back of the remaining pack of approximately 20 cars still running. 26 cars started this race. Not everyone, of course, makes the move to come to Australia because it's so expensive to get the cars over to the facility, bring all the team over, put them up in a hotel. So a lot of teams you do see skip this event. Of course, obviously the major teams do not miss it. And Newman Haas, being a major team, are leading it right now with Michael Andretti, his teammate Paul Tracy, back in 4th behind Teo Fabi and Jacques Villeneuve. Then Emerson Fittipaldi, the first of the Penske's. And right back towards back is Alonso Jr. Looks like Robbie Gordon, too. We've seen him come to the picture a couple of times in the Walker Motorsports entry. He could be making his charge. Now up to 9th. And right behind him, Bobby Rahal, Stefan Johansson, of course, out of Sweden. Big viewership in Sweden supporting Stefan Johansson.
And he's got one of the Penske chassis that we talked about before. It's a winning Penske chassis that was used by Al Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy last year. And essentially what they do is they get the car that's been used by that team at the end of the year, along with some engine and some other modifications, and they get an opportunity to test it throughout the winter and have basically all the racetrack setups that they were using the previous year from Penske.
The Bettenhausen team was stuck with that Penske, and they had the Ilmore, of course, before. Now they're running the Mercedes engines. And they've had some great qualifying runs and some great races, but they've also had some major disappointments, and many times Johansson's been running up 3rd, 4th, 5th position and either got caught up with a tail marker, a back marker, or some kind of mechanical failure towards the end of the race. And a bad example would be Long Beach, where he didn't even make the green flag, where he got together with Mario Andretti and just generally seemed to be having a lot of bad luck on our Bettenhausen team. As the field now makes their way through back to, and that's Alessandro Zampedri spinning where exactly his teammate Eric Bachelard had a spin earlier. Not a good day for that team to that particular point in the track.
Now, and there again, it's the section of track where you're actually going along the crown in the road, and you're trying to go up over the crown and then back into the left-hand portion and back on top of another crown coming, because the 2 roads meet at that certain spot. Very, very tricky spot, and it seems like everybody seems to be spinning there today.
Looks like we're going to get another full course yellow. It looks like they may have started to have a full course yellow and then may have changed their mind. I think what probably happened was Zampedri stalled it, and they had nowhere to push him off to, and then they must have been able to get him underway again, and he's moved and out of the way. But at one point it looked like he probably wasn't going to be able to do that. Michael Andretti continues to lead. Emerson Fittipaldi making an unscheduled pit stop there, and we are not sure why he did that. He may have heard, of course, that it was going to be a yellow flag situation, heard it right before he came past the pit lane, decided to dive in and take advantage of it, and of course not happened. But I understand now that he's had a black flag penalty for speeding in the pits earlier, so a stop and go penalty for him.
Those stop and go penalties can really change the outcome of the race, and we've seen it really hurt Al Jr. because he's now further back in the pack, and this will probably move Emerson Fittipaldi back at least 4 or 5 spots, maybe more.
Almost halfway through the 67 laps to be run here at Australia. 187 miles scheduled for this race, or 182 miles, or in the case of last year, until the sun sets. As we ran, they cut the race short by 10 laps and finished. You raced in it last year, Scott, and you said that one of the memories of the last 20 minutes of that race for you was all the flash cameras that were going off.
It was very strange. Obviously, you have that at places like Le Mans or else the Daytona 24-hour. But at Surfer's Paradise, you don't really expect to see that. Two things were happening. The brake markers on the racetrack were becoming very, very hard to see coming to the braking zones. And as you're going down the straight along Lakeshore Boulevard, for instance, there, what you're seeing is flash bulbs go off all the way along. It's just a very, very strange feeling, especially in the IndyCar.
Michael Andretti continues to lead the field. Villeneuve is second. Al Unser Jr., for some reason, is being listed as third. As we know, that is wrong, as Paul Tracy is currently in third position. And in fourth position, Villeneuve running in third. In fourth, Paul Tracy. And in fifth, I believe, we had at one point Emerson Fittipaldi, but of course he did have to get that black flag stop-and-go penalty. Villeneuve there, you see in the blue and white Reynard entry. The kid has just come on amazingly. He's proved to be very quick. At one point, there was worry whether he was going to be a crasher, and he's not been a crasher, and he's certainly been very consistent, qualifying very well. This is the fourth time he's qualified second. He's in the last 4 races in IndyCar racing, 3 top 3 finishes. Just a great experience, a great young guy coming into the series.
He's done an excellent job ever since he arrived on the scene last year. There was a lot of talk about him going over to Formula One racing for 1995. There's also been a lot of talk, even in the Canadian papers, because he is a Canadian but living in Monaco at this time, that he'd be going to Ferrari maybe in 1996. But the season's very young now. The rumors don't really start until about August of every year, so it'll be interesting to see if he does stay around for 1996 or take a Formula One offer.
After 31 laps, there you see the leaderboard. Michael Andretti continuing to lead in the Lola Ford Newman Haas entry. Teo Fabi is in second. Jacques Villeneuve, this guy we see in front of us, the French-Canadian, in third. Stefan Johansson, the Swede, is worked his way up to fourth. And Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti's teammate, is now currently listed in fifth position. Do you think we're going to see Villeneuve go, as we now ride on board with Bobby Rahal? And I believe off to the right of the screen, you're going to see another car rejoin the picture as we cut short that replay. Do you believe we're going to see Villeneuve go to Formula One?
There's a lot of talk about it right now, but I'm sure that he wants to go away, at least winning quite a few more races and have an opportunity to maybe have a good run at Indianapolis. He also has finished second there, and I can tell you that once you finish second, you really want to go back
and win. Bobby Rahal right behind Mauricio Guzman, running in the Pac West team. Mauricio Guzman has just signed a new 2-year contract with Hollywood Cigarettes out of South America. So he looks like he's set for sponsorship for the next couple of years. Guzman led in Miami, finished second, a great day for him. Pac West, in fact, the team, a new team, had a great run. Really had 2 fairly disastrous years. Decided to go with his own chassis, didn't work for him, didn't even get into the Indianapolis 500. Decided to go with the Honda engines, almost didn't make, well, he didn't make it into the 500 with a Honda engine, had to borrow a car and an engine from Roger Penske. Still running his own team, but this year he's gone back to his old Lola, which he's always been keen on. Now running the Mercedes engine, looking like a good season ahead for Bobby Rahal and his teammate Raul Boesel.
And Bobby's third in the points championship after the Miami event, and going to pick up some good, valuable points here. Like we talked about earlier, a guy that always is there at the end.
There you see the drivers are out. Fernandez, we saw out with the crash. Christian Fittipaldi is out with transmission problem. And Jimmy Vasser, who was running fairly well, also went out with a transmission problem. Vasser was as high as fourth at one point. Here is the battle for third. Johansson chasing down Villeneuve, and right behind Johansson, Paul Tracy. Good battle. We've got the 3 different chassis here. The Reynard, followed by the Penske, then the Lola. And I think right behind Paul Tracy, we see Scott Pruitt.
So that Scott Pruitt's following up then on Firestone tires. So it's a great combination here of all the guys together with everybody, different chassis, different engines, and different tires, and everybody eager to get points.
Stefan Johansson certainly had a storied career. He's raced for all the top teams in Formula One. Really didn't get the results he wanted there. Came over, looked at IndyCar for a couple of years, finally got a ride. Now really considered to be in one of the better prepared teams and better financed and better material teams, but still just not getting the results he wants. And Scott Pruitt now we see coming on strong. Those Firestone tires have really come in well to this season.
They did a great job in Miami. I was there walking around the track, watching the race cars on the circuit itself, and the Firestone tires looked like they were really taking well to the race circuit itself. And we understand that there's a lot of debris going around the racetrack right now, and maybe that Scott Pruitt have picked up a plastic bag somewhere in the radiator. So if that is the case, then be blocking the air to the radiators. The engine might start to run hot, and he would have to make an unscheduled pit stop to come in and remove that.
That could certainly hurt him. Tracy looks like he's going around one of the back markers as they go into that turn. A couple of years ago, we saw Mansell picked up a cap on the front wing, and then that flew from the wing. As now Tracy looks down the inside of Villeneuve. Watch him lock up that left front, and probably the right front too. No, he does it smoothly. Gets under there very nicely, makes that move, putting now Paul Tracy up into the 3rd position.
And he's now going to start to set his sights on
pardon me, the 4th position, because Johansson has managed to get by Villeneuve too. So do you think, we saw right at the beginning of the race, Villeneuve started 2nd. Everybody seemed to be able to work their way past him fairly well, and then he seemed to be holding up the rest of the gang. And now we're seeing that same situation where Johansson has been able to get by him. Tracy really got by him without too much trouble, and now can Scott Pruitt get by him?
Well, it's maybe a situation that his car works good in one segment of a fuel load, and for instance, they just filled up and they've only run a few laps, so maybe the car runs better with light fuel loads, because he was up there a little closer to the pack when the tanks were light. So here's an opportunity just to have to sit back and watch to see what goes on here.
Great camera shot out of the back of Paul Tracy's Lola Ford entry, the Newman Haas entry. New team for Paul Tracy, done over 3,000 testing miles this past winter, and looking to be very strong. Of course, looking for his first IndyCar championship. He finished 3rd in it a couple of times, and obviously out to win. The main thing you see in that picture, obviously apart from the rear wing at the back, is the pop-off valve, a major part of IndyCar racing. Scott, why don't you sort of run through exactly what that pop-off valve does?
Basically what it's doing is it's limiting the pressure in the intake manifold, as we call the plenum, and it's an opportunity for a kart to be able to govern the horsepower of the engine to basically make sure that everybody's running at 45 inches of pressure inside the engine, inside the plenum, and not going anything over that. A lot of people try to fix the pop-off valve in past years, and they've now come out with an electronic system which is very, very good, not allowing the engines to go to 47 to 48 inches of boost pressure inside that turbo motor. And so here's an opportunity for everybody to run at the same pressure and hopefully be legal.
And of course, once you do go over that, the reason it's called a pop-off valve, because it basically does pop off and you lose power. Then of course you've got to get it back and underneath. Another thing you may have noticed at the back of that picture, with the clouds in the background, we may see some rain here yet. 35 laps are completed. Of course, once we're over halfway, they can red flag the race and it will count as the positions you finish in. Last year, of course, we saw stop, start, big delay. This one's going to be enough in the books to count as a race. And I don't think it's going to be enough rain. Obviously, it needs to be a really serious downpour. We need to collect water on the track. We do have the wet tires, and if it's just drizzling, they'll switch to those and go out. And, of course, then we see all strategies that we've been planning, all ideas, all pit stop, that's all gone out the window. And then suddenly, new tires, new race starts, as now Paul Tracy is chasing down Stefan Johansson. Great run for Johansson in the number 16 entry.
He's doing a great job. I can tell you from experience at this circuit here, when it rains, it seems like it just comes down in buckets, and you have to almost drive in the center of the racetrack to run on the high side of the crown of the road. And we've seen here in past years when it started to rain, people just going along the straightaway that you're seeing here, Lakeshore Boulevard, and people just doing pirouettes, 360s, because of the hydroplaning.
That hydroplaning a big trouble, and also you go to a racing school, you're told what the racing line is, you follow that racing line, and that's the quick way around the track. The moment it rains, throw out all racing lines, because all the rubber is being laid down there. The water hits the rubber, it's like ice. So suddenly the racing line changes, and you see guys going around the outside of corners, miles away from any apex, where they're trying to get on the part of the track that's not being smoothed out, and they're trying to get grip. And then, of course, you see the guys trying to save the wet tires by deliberately running on the dry part of the track to keep the heat in them and to get the water off, because then, or not to dissipate the heat. It can be a real varying situation with rain, depending on how much rain you get. Do they run in the wet line? Do they run on the dry line? There's a great battle unfolds right in front of us. Paul Tracy chasing down Stefan Johansson. And Johansson behind Fabi and Michael Andretti, who has been our leader all the way through. Michael Andretti has 2 points for the championship. One for the pole at Miami, one for leading the most laps. Well, he's given 2 more, because he had the pole here, and also will have now led the most laps in this race. So
Fittipaldi. Unser and Tracy. Villeneuve. Players Limited continues its leadership in Canadian motor racing by sponsoring Road America 200 winner Jacques Villeneuve and the Players Limited racing team in the PPG IndyCar World Series, the ultimate test of man and machine. Players Limited, a tradition of excellence.
Face it, shaving is a pain. It strips away the skin's moisture, leaving it hot, dry, and burning. But now there's proof you can take the heat out of shaving. Introducing Sensitive from Old Spice. It's the one with cooling sensates, an invigorating blast of real refreshment that cools skin scorched by shaving. Prove it to yourself. Try new Sensitive from Old Spice. It's more than a great scent. This is a cooling blast of real refreshment that takes the heat out of shaving.
Jog going up through this little tricky section here, another right-hand jog, and we're going to do a left-right combination here. Good opportunity to make up time on a competitor in front of you. So you're always working the brakes, always working the accelerator. Here we come back onto the main straight, second gear, wind up through third, fourth, fifth. Let's listen to the engine here. Past the pits on the left-hand side, coming into the turn one chicane, coming from about 185 miles an hour down to 50. See the grandstands on the right-hand side and all the suites.
Big crowd on hand too for the Australia race. Australians, huge motor racing fans.
Great fans.
Villeneuve slow on the track by the looks of things.
Well, we know it's not going to be fuel because he seems to be well within the window, but very possibly transmission problems like a lot of the other cars today.
We saw two other cars go out. He's in the pit lane. And here you see him pulling into the pit lane, and as you pointed out, transmission's taking a beating here in Australia. Maybe that's his problem. He'll come in. It doesn't look like the crew is it's fairly terminal. They're not
I would say
running
maybe even the engine, because he knows the engine's off or something.
He's out the car. He's done. So 1995 points leader Jacques Villeneuve, the young Canadian, had a win last year at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, is out of this race. A disappointing run for him. He was as high as second, qualified second. We did see him get past with ease on a number of occasions. We were speculating whether the car was handling well under certain fuel loads or not. But obviously not a good day for Villeneuve. And something he doesn't normally do. He's taken his helmet off. Jack's got a bit of a reputation for walking from his motorhome to the pit and to the car and to and from with his helmet on, just so he avoids everybody and obviously keeps himself focused on what he's got to get done that day. But
race that you'd be able to overcome that? Well, I thought the gearbox would be okay, but since the first day of test we've had problems with that new gearbox, and it seems to be a little too weak. All right, thank you. Jacques Villeneuve obviously wants to get back away from the crowd of spectators here. He's headed back to his garage.
And great that he's bothering to even take the time. You can match.
Poor Tracy, the Canadian, Scott Pruitt out of Nevada, running in fifth, coming back into the championship with the Pat Patrick team and the Firestone tires. We talked about international. We have 15 international drivers representing 10 countries. And at some point, Scott, we should be able to tell you what this sounds like when you hear it in Mandarin Chinese.
Well, that's something that I know I'm going to like to hear, but I'm not going to understand it.
All right, in fact, for all the international viewers, here's what IndyCar racing sounds like in Mandarin Chinese.
国际车手的大会决。
Or maybe not. Michael Andretti continues.
Michael Andretti 现在继续处在领先的位置。这位6号车手自去年在 Chip Ganassi 取得2场比赛的胜利之后，今年加入了 Newman Haas 车队之后，实力大增，而且在澳大利亚呢。
Witnessing this race, and that's the Mandarin Chinese call. What did he say, Scott?
Well, I know he's talking about Michael Andretti and something about he used to drive for Chip Ganassi, and that's as much as I caught up with.
Oh, well, he is more than me. Michael Andretti continues to lead round 2 of the 1995 IndyCar Series.
Michael Andretti slowing?
I think he is slowing. Sounds like he's headed for the pit
stop.
Now, this could be his scheduled pit stop, but he stayed out a lot longer than the rest of the guys on the first time round, so this seems like an early one. Trouble on the right front.
Jack. It looks like the Jack is not getting up for some reason, and so that's obviously going to cost him a little bit of time. He had a bit of a cushion built up, but it's the pits that we talked about before. It's so important, and obviously the Jack couldn't get the car up in the air, but he gets a clean stop. Away he goes. Probably cost him a couple of extra seconds there. But Teo Fabi now has taken the lead, and we saw Michael Andretti lock that right front tire up because the tires are cold. We talked about it before. No tire warmers in IndyCar racing. He's going to try and get the car back up to speed without locking up those tires.
That's Rahal coming just right behind him. There you see him locking it up. We saw that from on board. That was the picture from ahead. Rahal right behind him. Oh, and Michael's having trouble with those cold tires, getting back out, and Rahal makes the move. And there you see Michael putting the power back on. Obviously not a mechanical problem, but it looks like maybe losing a little control or a little grip from those tires, just not up to temperature. There you see him getting exciting moment for him and for Rahal.
Yeah, just trying to keep Bobby behind him, but Bobby probably still has to make a pit stop yet. But we've always talked about Bobby. He's very quietly going about his business, and he's going to be there collecting points. Points. We've talked about it many times. He
started back on the 7th row on the inside and has worked his way up now into what I believe is 4th position. Teo Fabi, our new leader, of course. Stephanie Johansson, Paul Tracy continue to do their battle. This is now for 2nd position, but both of these guys are yet to make their pit stop. On board with Paul Tracy. There you can see just how narrow and tight the circuit is. Really not many overtaking opportunities, mainly that left-hander under braking on that first chicane seems to be the main spot for overtaking. A lot of the rest of the track is basically follow the leader and wait and be patient to make your move.
It is, but probably has a lot more opportunities to pass at this track than we saw maybe at Miami a couple of weeks ago.
And they both stay out for one more lap. And there you see Scott Pruitt now currently in the 4th position in the Pat Patrick Firestone entry team with Firestone coming back after a 24-year layoff. And now our leader, Teo Fabi, is in the pits in that Forsyth team that split up from the green Forsyth. Fabi.
And his steering wheel is coming off.
Well, now he's gone from leader, he's gone from champ to chump.
The engine cover is being unfastened in the back, so that tells you that they've had some problem with the Ford Cosworth engine. That's a shame. It's a new team. It's only been around, obviously, for a couple of races.
That's a big disappointment because he was running very well up in very competitively in the 2nd position, took over the lead while Michael made his stop. We're not quite sure what the reason for Fabi climbing out of the car. Obviously, it's a terminal problem, but just when you get in the lead and it all goes wrong, the most frustrating moment, of course, for a leader or for a racer. And now our new leader, Stefan Johansson. Don't forget, he still has to make his pit stop.
As does Paul Tracy, but we talked about going about your business quietly. Bobby Rahal's back there, moves up another spot, going to collect more points, and it looks like maybe Bobby might walk away with a points lead from Australia.
He could well do, as you say, because Paul Tracy, of course, scored no points in Miami. Stephanie Johansson scored very few. In fact, if any, he didn't score any. So it will put him up to 20 because Rahal finished 3rd in Miami and get some points. At this point, do you think Paul Tracy's going, darn, I wish I was still in that Penske from last year? And how much has it helped him to go to the Lola team with all that information from Penske from last year?
Well, the cars are certainly different. They're different manufacturers and designed and built differently. But it's got to be a little bit hard for him to be sitting back there in a Lola looking at a car that's a year old that he drove last year that's in front of him, and he wants to get past it so badly. But right now, he's doing a great job by sitting back, being neat and tidy, not making any mistakes, because he also didn't earn any points in Miami and needs to come away with points from Australia.
Paul Tracy had a bit of a reputation as a crasher. He seemed to clear that up. Scott, the ironic story is you actually taught the guy at the racing school up in Canada.
Well, it's funny because I started Formula Ford racing in 1980 and did that for 3 years, and then owed so much money I had to go and make money. So I opened up a racing school.
Of course, Michael Andretti make his charge through the field as Tracy still continues to shadow Johansson. Fabi, I guess, also went out with a gearbox trouble, so that is certainly proven to be the troubles here. And we talked about it before in the show. The Pac West team, both their cars suffered transmission troubles in the practice and qualifying session, so they really are taking a beating here now. I guess it's to the point to the guy that can nurse his transmission and not push his car as much as he has to get to the finish here. We are, of course, over halfway at this point.
Well, it's very important. It also has sometimes to do with the driver's style, how he actually is operating itself on the gearbox. And some guys are a little smoother than others, but sometimes that comes into play. But I have to say, the very first race of the year, it must have to do with the design of the gearbox possibly, or something internally, because there's too many cars going out of the event at this time with gearbox failure.
Temperature's about 75 degrees, a little bit of a wind coming off the coast. There's a 15% chance of rain. We saw some clouds earlier. It looks like we're going to be able to get this race in, though, because we only have 22 odd laps remaining, and we still need to see these two make their pit stop. I said Rahal was up to third. He's actually in fourth, trailing Scott Pruitt. But remember, both of those guys still to make their pit stops. And currently in fifth, Michael Andretti, having made his, and he feels at this point he can go to the end of the race without obviously having to stop again. We saw the first round of pit stops come, and Andretti didn't actually stop until about lap 23, so he should be safe to the end of this race.
He should have enough fuel on board, as you're mentioning from what we've seen before. Interesting point here in Miami, Bobby Rahal, Scott Pruitt having a battle for position. And almost the same thing here. And
now Scott Pruitt makes his pit stop, so this position battle could take place on pit lane or back out on the track. Right before Pruitt, you also saw Alessandro Zampedri bring his car into pit lane. He could be done for the day. He came in very slowly. The crew all done. Very quick pit stop for him. Pruitt, sounds like a little bit of trouble getting the gear there, but pulls out of pit lane, sticks to the speed limit, and back out underway. A clean stop for him. Rahal still to make his stop. Gildefran still to make his stop. Gildefran, I believe, has worked his way up the pack fairly well. Fittipaldi, we know, has made his second pit stop. And Alonso Jr., of course, don't forget, he's still out there somewhere at his 2 stop-and-go penalties. And he will have made, or will be making, his second pit stop very shortly. Tracy having a look down the inside, but no room. These two guys, I mean, are really battling close. You'd think that maybe nursing a little more than they are, because they know they're still going to make that second round of stops yet. And we've seen these transmission have troubles, and we've seen, obviously, in the past, a lot of incidents on a track like this where you can't make a mistake, you can't go offline, because the moment you can't make contact with the wall, your day is done.
Well, I think it's important to point out that the cars that are having transmission problems are Reynards. We have 2 cars here, a Penske car that's a year old that did have any transmission problems. They probably were repaired last year by Penske. And Paul Tracy and Alola, we don't think that any Lola cars have been having any transmission problems from anything that we've heard from testing their racing so far this year.
A great battle down under in Australia, round 2 of the 1995 season. The Swede, Stefan Johansson, continues to lead. Canadian Paul Tracy is in second. Scott Pruitt was in third, but just made his pit stop. So Rahal, who is now making his pit stop, Rahal had been bumped up to third, is now going to drop back a couple of spots as the Rahal-Hogan team go to work on that car. Bobby Rahal third in the championship at the moment after that third-place finish at Miami, looking very strong and consistent this year. He's already won 2 championships. He's won 2 500s. Gildefran comes in right behind him to make his stop. Rahal back out on the way. Looked like a good, clean stop to me.
It was a nice stop, and Bobby, the winner of the 1985 Indianapolis 500, just in the last couple of laps, taking over the lead position there. He's a very crafty individual. Sits back and does just a great job. Looked like that stop took a little longer than usual.
I think it may have been a case of taking their time to make sure it was all done smoothly. They don't run over an air hose. They don't have a problem with the jacket because they've got the time. They're in a good position. And as we talked about, Rahal is just a good slugger. Keeps on going, keeps on picking up points, consistent finishes in the top 5. And that's how he's really won his championships.
Certainly, and probably a little longer on that stop, as we're talking about, to probably collect all the fuel that's remaining in the fuel tank. As the fuel tank becomes lighter with fuel load, it's gravity fed, so the fuel does not go into the car as quickly. So no doubt, probably a little slower with the fuel coming out of the tank into the car. You can see both Stefan Johansson, the leader of the race, and Paul Tracy going into the pits for their pit stop, which will be the last pit stop for both of them. Be interesting to see if Johansson can come out in front of Tracy, as Tracy is pitted further down pit lane in front of Johansson.
Now, of course, the advantage here for Tracy is he won't have to worry about the speed limit on the exit of pit lane because he's right at the exit. Johansson's going to get up to speed, but he's still got to stick to that 80 miles an hour. The battle is on right now for this quick stop. Tracy looks like he's done and out and underway, and he's going to beat Johansson out of the pit lane.
Oh, clearly. Yeah. That's the difference in the team right there.
And there we talk about races being won on pit lane. Tracy's picked up that position. He couldn't get by him on the track. Certainly did it in pit lane. Although, of course, this is now not for the lead. By my calculations, Michael Andretti just back out front.
Well, it's still for second and third, valuable points, but we see it happen at Miami. We're seeing it happen here. But the Newman Haas teams did such a great job of getting Paul in and out of the pits. It's very interesting to see that he had to let the one driver go. Paul Tracy got himself a good position with Newman Haas in the Kmart car. And here he is finding himself leading the Australian Grand Prix.
As you mentioned, or as we mentioned earlier, no points for Paul Tracy from Miami. And here is our leader, Michael Andretti. Judging by our calculations, he did get past that pit lane. So Michael Andretti, who's led many, many laps here so far today, out in front. Al Unser Jr. back in pit lane for a scheduled pit stop. The two early in the race were not scheduled, and he's desperately trying to make up time lost at the beginning of the race. And now, of course, at this point, he realizes obviously the win is out of the question, but a good high place finish to get as many points as he can in the championship. They've extended the series by one race this year, 17 races, makes it more chances to score more points, but then again, you've got to be more consistent.
Very much so, and obviously the first race next year will probably be at Disney World in Florida. It will not be part of the kart schedule, which is a series you're watching now, but it will be part of the IRL series, which is run by Tony George and USAC, which also runs the Indianapolis 500. But saying that's part of the series might be a little bit off, but I think all the competitors in the IndyCar series and the kart series itself will be going to that event because it will be such a high-profile event. It already holds a purse of over $1 million.
And you mentioned Disney World, of course. If anybody can attract people, Disney World can. And they are building that facility especially for that event. And they are building more attractions down in Orlando, in Florida. And you're right, I think we're going to see a lot of these guys, if not racing there, they're going to be there to see what's going on. A lot of controversy at the moment between the IRL, the Indy Racing League, and the kart, which is the championship also racing teams. We've already had this problem years ago when USAC and kart split up, and now basically USAC is trying to get back into running of the IndyCar series. They want to make it so it's less expensive, a little slower on the cars, but not by aerodynamically, but by giving them a smaller engine. And they really want to bring back more American drivers, the American drivers out of the midget and the oval circuits, give them a chance to run the big-time Indy cars. It's going to be interesting to see what happens throughout the rest of this season, and of course in the off-season at the end of this season for 1996. Right now, 1995, though, Michael Andretti continuing to lead here in Australia. Paul Tracy, his teammate, is second, getting that position from Johansson in pit lane. Bobby Rahal in fourth. Scott Pruitt is currently in fifth. A good run for him. Someone we have not seen all day, Robbie Gordon. I'm surprised that he has not even fared anywhere at all in this picture.
And Robbie Gordon had such a strong run here at Australia last year. He was always running up front in qualifying, always running strong, ran up front during the race, always up in the points paying position until he had a crash in the back section. It's got to be a very frustrating time for him for the first two races, not collecting any points, and was clearly expecting to be a contender for the championship this year. We're not saying that's gone away, but certainly it's very difficult to be not collecting points at this point in time and still have a run at the championship.
Looked like a little mistake there by Michael. He locked it up, and then it sounded like he had trouble selecting a gear coming out of the turn. Doesn't seem to have affected him too much as he's back on the speed and full past the pit lane area to complete lap 47, I believe, or 67. Michael Andretti really just dominating this event here. Robbie Gordon, we talked about him, and what a guy he races. I mean, you give him anything, he'll race it. And between Miami and here, in fact, he did an off-road race here in the States.
That's right. He runs his Ford trucks in the off-roading and goes out to the desert and races 200, 400, 500 miles, and such a punishing event. And that's a real challenging type of racing because of the car sometimes, or the truck breaks sometimes, the driver's out there trying to fix it himself out in the desert.
Standing out in the middle of the desert, battling off rattlesnakes and spiders and heat and dust and mud and dirt. Not, to me, not the glamorous side of motor racing.
It's not like Surfer's Paradise in Australia, that's for sure.
Hiro Matsushita, number 25, who's switched teams this year, but is out with a cut left rear tire. May have run over some debris. So I wonder if that's a Firestone tire that you point out there, Scott. Very good point. He may have run over some debris, which could cause problems for some other drivers, or could it be the Firestone tires are wearing?
Well, the Firestone tires...
Trouble with the right front. Oh, he seems to have got it solved there, but with the right front.
Oh, it looks like he probably got hit from the rear.
Yep, so both of my theories are out the window. No debris and no tires aren't wearing down. He just got tagged from behind.
That usually happens. The front wings on these cars have a side fence on them that are very thin, very sharp. And if it just touches the rear tire of the car in front, it can just slice the tire just like butter.
And that was Robbie Gordon that tagged him. So it may have caused some damage to the wing on Gordon's car, which could put him further back. Resetting those records again in 1995, and just huge viewership, audience-wise, TV-wise, 140 countries picking up this show. And I mentioned real international feel too, with 15 international drivers representing 10 countries, as we have just 14 laps to go. The question is, can Paul Tracy chase down his teammate Michael Andretti? Michael Andretti has looked pretty solid all day.
Looked very solid also at Miami, led the event until the car broke. And in this situation here, if nothing breaks, I would have to say that Michael's going to come away with 20 points for the win, 1 point for pole, 1 point for leading the most laps, 22 points to go with the 2 that he received from Miami, which is going to be a total of 24. Here you can see he's now going to pass Hiro Matsushita, who's now come out of the pits after having his tire replaced from having it cut from Robbie Gordon.
You know, there was a lot of talk just last year. You may remember Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy had a lot of run-ins with each other, to the point at one of the tracks in, I believe it was Vancouver, Paul Tracy got out of the car after being punted off by Michael and said, "Oh, that guy is driving all over the place, he's just bumping people out of the way." And he made an official complaint. After the official complaint, the officials then reminded Paul Tracy that he had been reported 13 times during that race for bumping other people, as Michael Andretti is now trying to get past the back line and say, "Hey, move out of my way." So the rumors in the off-season were locking him up too. The rumors in the off-season, it's Hiro Matsushita. We shouldn't be surprised that it will be him that is blocking. We've seen this happen many times before.
And the key thing to do from Michael, obviously, he has a lead. He doesn't want to see it dissipate. He wants to try and get past Hiro Matsushita cleanly. But Hiro Matsushita, unfortunately, is a driver known for not looking in his mirrors. Very difficult to pass at a circuit like this, on a street circuit. A lot of stop-and-go situations. Michael just needs to be able to collect the car now, get a good run at him going down the front straight, and pass him before he gets into turn 1. But Hiro seems to be pulling out of turns quite strongly.
Yeah, very strongly there. Now you wonder if Michael, A, doesn't have a problem, but B, you wonder if Michael's not on the radio to his crew chief saying, "Get down to the Matsushita pit and tell the guy to move out of the way." We had a case of that happen last year with Emerson Fittipaldi. At this point, obviously, Michael getting very frustrated because all this time he's behind Matsushita. Although Matsushita's quick out of the corners, it's generally slowing. And there you see Michael waving like that, "Get out of my way." Meantime, Paul Tracy's making up ground on him.
Very much so. And the other thing that could happen here also is we see a full course yellow. Everybody's going to pack up again. And Michael wants to try and get as many cars in between him and the second place car, his teammate, Paul Tracy, as possible in case this happens. Michael may be running a taller gear coming out of turns here to save fuel. Maybe that's why he's not accelerating out of turns as quickly. It seems like Hiro really gets a good run coming out of those corners, which is very, very strange.
You may see that Michael, as you say, is short shifting, trying to conserve fuel, and by that is letting Matsushita get away. But at the same time, you'd think for a couple of corners he'd put it together so he'd get by. But obviously this is holding him up much more than he would like. We understand that the IndyCar officials are getting on the radio to Matsushita to move out of the way. And Tracy has made up huge ground. Now we see Michael go by. Look at him. He's going to make Matsushita stay out wide, and he makes that move, but he has got to be mad. Because the problem now, Tracy's got to do the same thing.
Well, Michael may have paved the way for Paul to get by, because he's had such a battle there. And here we go with the yellow flag, and may just be a station flag for what looked like to be a Marlboro car off.
Yeah, that looks awfully like a Penske car. I mean, now Tracy trying to get by, and you mentioned at this point Matsushita may be aware that these guys are coming up. I mean, not moving over there at all, though, and Tracy is having trouble getting by. That car that we see parked, you're right, was a Marlboro car. It's Emerson Fittipaldi. A rotten day for him, a rotten start to the season. No points in Miami. His hometown crowd in Miami really looking forward to big things there. And now a big disappointment for him in Australia. I'd like to just get back, if I can, to the point we were trying to mention before. Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy were known to battle each other. They complained about each other's driving last year. Now they're on the same team. There's a lot of talk that they wouldn't be getting on. But from what I understand, the two have really worked well together with the setup of the car on separate test days. They've faxed each other information. And so far at this point, it looks like the two are getting on well. But do you think it's going to be a tough season? The two young guns. He's proven to be great. And now we're on board with Paul Tracy as he trails teammate Michael Andretti. And at this point, I'm just hoping they can get these cars cleared up so we can have a great race to the end.
It'll be a great race to the end, without a doubt. Looks like we're going to have a replay here. Maybe this is of Di Ferran coming out. Yeah, he just comes out and he runs over the back of a car in front of him, which looks like it might have been Eddie Cheever, and clips off that
Here's Cheever.
Right front corner. Here we go here. Yeah.
Cheever obviously lost a little power coming out of the turn because Bosell was able to pull well away from him. Ferran tried to duck down the inside and make the move. Didn't make a tight enough turn.
I think what Cheever was trying to do, knowing that he was maybe being lapped or whatever was going on there, it looked like he left enough space to the right-hand side of the track for him to go around the outside, and he was trying to sneak on the inside and just, you know, being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Now, do you suppose after this race there's going to be some meetings, there's complaints? I suppose Michael's going to go and have a few words with Matsushita, or at least file some kind of complaint, because I hate to pick on Hiro Matsushita, but it's something we saw all last year and the year before. The guy's got a lot of money, he's able to go racing, but his reputation for looking in his mirrors is amongst drivers, I would assume yourself too, not good.
Well, it's unfortunate. I mean, he's a very, very nice guy, but I think in this opportunity, when you know that you're lapped or you're 1 or 2 laps down, and we've all had that if we've had mechanical problems, you don't want to affect the outcome of the race. If you can just breathe the gas going down the straightaway and let the people go by that really have an opportunity to win the event. And with this situation now, the pack is packing up. You've got Michael Andretti in the lead, Paul Tracy second, Bobby Rahal third, and it looks like Scott Pruitt in fourth, and Gujamin in fifth. And you can have
Danny Sullivan, I believe.
Danny Sullivan sitting up there too. It looks like Pac West is in for a good day also. Here's a situation where you've got the third car in the field right now. It's Matsushita. Bobby Rahal, the master, sitting back there in third, going to collect some great points as we've discussed all day long. He needs to get past Matsushita to be able to have a run at both Michael Andretti, the leader, and Paul Tracy, who's now in second. And the key thing here is for Michael and Paul, both very competitive drivers, very aggressive drivers, are going to be trying to get the lead. Michael trying to keep the lead, Paul trying to take the lead over from his teammate on the restart.
We see Teo Fabi is back out there under power too after getting out of the car. It looked like he was going to call it quits for the day, but now we see his car is back out there. Also, by my calculations, Alonso Jr. has managed to work his way up to 7th, including the 2 stop-and-go penalties and going to the back of the pack and working his way through the field. But by the elimination of such people as Gilda Ferran, Stefan Johansson, Fabi, Villeneuve, Unser just staying out there all day and plugging away, is going to come away with some points from round 2 in Australia. Just to remind everybody, while you're enjoying this round 3 of the Indy Series coming up in Phoenix, our first 1 mile oval, first oval of the year. That race is April 2nd, due for a 4 p.m. telecast. Make sure you join us from there. Great racing, as Scott pointed out earlier, the Bull Ring, a great circuit. We've seen some wonderful races there, and generally gorgeous weather in the middle of April, about 80 degrees, sunshine, wind blowing. It's a great place to visit, nice town, and a really great facility too. It's a great facility, and the people can see the whole track from the pits up there. Nice thing about it is it's a 1 mile track. It's right there in front of you. It's almost like you're sitting watching the event on a theater. It's like an amphitheater. You see all the action at one time, and here we, after 55 of 65 laps, Michael Andretti leads the event. Paul Tracy in second, both teammates on the Kmart team. Bobby Rahal running in third, Scott Pruitt in the Firestone Shod car in fourth, and Gujamin in fifth. Sixth is Danny Sullivan, seventh Alan Zer Jr. after a couple of stop and goes, Raul Boesel in eighth, Eddie Cheever in ninth, a great run for the AJ Foyt car, and Robbie Gordon, after a very difficult day and a difficult couple of races here at Miami in Australia, is now in 10th. At least he's collecting some points. Yeah, he will get some points for that. An interesting end to the race with 10 laps remaining. We should hopefully see that pace car peel off soon, and we should have a great battle for the finish. Just to recap who is out, especially on our international field, car number 10, Adrian Fernandez, the Mexican, went out very early in a crash. Christian Fittipaldi and a Reynard went out with transmission problems. Jimmy Vasser, also in a Reynard, went out with transmission problems. We're really not quite sure what happened to Eric Bachelard. Never really took the start, but then rejoined and had a spin. French-Canadian Jacques Villeneuve has gone out, also in a Reynard, also with transmission problems after running as high as second. Teo Fabi was listed as out. We've seen him running. Buddy Lazier is out. Gilda Ferran, as we saw, just get knocked out. Stephanie Johansson, electronic problems, as has Emerson Fittipaldi, both out on the track at this moment. We should be green flag this time by.
Here we're riding Bobby Rahall's car, and you can see Hiro Matsushita, who we were discussing before. Third in the queue right now, obviously a lap car, down a few laps. Bobby Rahal is going to want to get past him as quickly as possible. I think we're probably going to get a green flag this time.
Yeah, the lights are off on the pace car. Look how close Tracy's going to get up behind Michael Andretti. Let's just hope that Matsushita and Zampenda can both move out of the way. In this top 5, we can have a great dash for the cash towards the end of this race. Round 2. Dash for the cash and dash for the points. There's Robbie Gordon. Doesn't look like he suffered too much damage, or any damage, in fact, after cutting down that tire on Matsushita's car. New rules on these restarts. They're not allowed to give a huge gap. They've got to stay close. And we should see that pace car pull off the Mercedes into pit lane.
There's
Close.
Tracy. Paul Tracy's really going to get the draft here going down the front straight. Teammates, but they're all on their own here today. So watch for Michael doing a little bit of blocking going down the front straight. Holds the position. Now Paul's going to have to try and push Michael into mistake, or else be able to try and get past him on a draft going into one of the turns after these long straights.
Rahal was able to get by Matsushita. The rest of the guys were not. I'm surprised. It looked like Tracy was going to be able to pull that move off after drafting so well down that straightaway. It looks like he was going to be able to get the slingshot, but no. Michael's car obviously very strong. His tires obviously working well for him. He is able to continue to lead this race in front of teammate Paul Tracy, looking for some points. Both these guys looking to score actual finishing points. Michael Andretti, as we pointed out, 2 points as Tracy takes a look down the inside. Is he going to be able to do it?
Well, they're almost going to rub wheels here. They're going to go into this left-right, and Paul gets it. He's gone through on the inside.
Nice move, under braking, putting Paul Tracy to the point, leading this race. There's Bobby Rahal in third. Now, Michael Andretti, of course, is not going to let that go unanswered. He's certainly going to fight back and try and pick off his second IndyCar win here in Australia, being the first guy to win 2 here.
And we saw that happen because when Michael Andretti was coming out of the turn, the car went just a little bit sideways. It looked like he couldn't get the power down. Paul was able to run up on the inside of him going down the long straight.
Michael Andretti keeping teammate Paul Tracy in his sights. As I mentioned before, I don't believe there's any team orders amongst these guys. Both running for the Newman Haas team. They're both really considered #1 driver, and it's up to them. Obviously, the team orders would come into effect when they start bashing each other, and they say, no, don't do that. But at this point, it's in your own race. Tracy's able to pull out quite a big gap on Michael. Will Rahal, in fact, be able to get by Michael for the second place finish?
Well, we're talking about teammates here also. I can almost guarantee you that if the season keeps on going like this, where they're 1-2 all the time, that maybe the transfer of information won't be as generous as it is now.
Yeah, they'll start seeing that communication link get smaller and smaller and smaller. So, Michael, what did you do? Oh, nothing. No, I'm running the really hard springs. There's Fabi running again as the rest of the field, including Alonso Jr.
That's where Paul Tracy really pulled away from him going down the front straight.
Do you suppose maybe Michael's missing a lower gear?
Well, possibly could be the situation because, as we talked about before, you wouldn't think that Hiro Matsushita could pull him out of the turns like that.
Rahal battling for that second place finish after Michael Andretti has dominated here all day. Started from the pole, led the most laps, but now as the race has gone on, the car is beginning to fade underneath him, and it looks like he's losing some of his speed. As Scott pointed out, not quick out of the corners. And with about 3 laps remaining, I think we're going to see Rahal make a move for that second place position. Tracy out front by about 10 car lengths right now.
And if Bobby tries to make a move, I suspect it will probably be coming out of the last turn, going down the front straight. Great place to pass, great place to get a draft going into the turn 1 area. Michael's slow coming onto the front straight.
And as before, at the same time Rahal tries to make a move for position, he's got to watch in his mirrors very closely, because right behind him, Scott Pruitt, who's had a great run today.
Deja vu of Miami. Bobby in third, Scott Pruitt in fourth after a restart.
Coming through the chicane. There you see how high they ride up on that curbing. Back on board once again with Bobby Rahal.
This is a great view from this camera here because it's almost like you're driving in the car. You're driving with the driver right now, going through all the turns. Look how close you're coming to the wall.
And there you see all those tire marks on the outside of the wall. You see where people have made contact with the wall over the weekend through the qualifying and practice sessions. Of course, other races ran here too this weekend. The Australian touring car, they had some go-karts, and I believe they had a Formula Ford race here in Australia this weekend. Many events lined up to keep this huge crowd in Australia that are still in their seats looking, or actually at this point standing up in their seats for this dramatic finish to round 2 of the 1995 season.
It would have been interesting to see if Michael could have kept Paul behind him if he didn't have that problem coming out of the turn, because it seems like Michael's being able to run in a lapse time just as fast as everybody else, but you know, a little quicker in some spots than Bobby and a little slower in some others, but all seems to come out equal.
And we talked about this track being the place where first, well, Paul Tracy switches from Penske. His first, or actually, I guess you could put it as a first, but his first win for the Lola Newman Haas team will come here in Australia.
And it's really going to start to shape up to be a Reynard versus Lola championship if this is going to keep up.
Yeah, at this point we have, of course, Lola's in the top 4.
That's right.
And then our first Reynard, Mauricio Guzman, who is currently listed in 5th position, right behind him, teammate Danny Sullivan. Behind Sullivan in 7th position is Alonso Jr., then Raul Boesel in 8th. In 9th position, Eddie Cheever, and rounding out the top 10 is the number 5 of Robbie Gordon. Paul Tracy, a clear track in front of him. He looks fairly safe for the remainder of this race. A lot of the back markers that were running out of there at this point have either completely faded and pulled out behind pit lane or just gone generally. And of course, we bunched everybody up underneath that yellow flag situation, locking up the left front there just quickly, obviously pushing it still right to the last moment here at Australia.
With only a couple of laps left to go now, you can not really have to worry too much about the tires or the engine. You're certainly listening to it, but a couple of laps left to go here. I don't think that he's really too concerned about conserving the car to a sense, because he knows he has Michael Andretti and Bobby Rahal not too far behind.
And also, to the point we talk about the IndyCar series, they run on the tight street circuits, they run on the permanent road courses, the super speedways, and the short ovals. This car, of course, not the car he'll be racing in Phoenix.
Well, the car will be still a Lola chassis, but obviously a lot different in the sense of suspension setup and tires. And it'll be interesting to see at Phoenix also, the first time that we get to see Firestone and Goodyear go at a battle on an oval track.
There you see the battle for second. That's Rahal right behind Michael Andretti in the rear, or the top of your picture. Behind them, Scott Pruitt, and then right behind Scott Pruitt, Mauricio Guzman, who could also get many points. Currently second in the championship after that great race for him in Miami. Could be a great season for Guzman. 4 laps to go, indicated, as Tracy comes by through that new chicane complex, the new left, right, left again. There's Michael, Rahal, and then right behind them you see Scott Pruitt.
Scott's doing a great job after being off for a year and a half and going through that injury that he did quite a few years ago, and he's come back, and he's probably one of the top drivers, I think, in this series right now, and he certainly is probably the driver that is the most fit, I would say. He's a very, very adamant about his health.
He and Robbie Gordon probably 2 of the fittest and strongest guys on this tour. And there's a lot of talk about whether Scott Pruitt could win races. Here you see maybe a move by Rahal. I don't think it's a matter of whether Scott could win races, just he was never really in the right equipment, because after his horrendous accident that put him out for a year, he went into training, he came back, went to Daytona to the IROC race, and it was like a movie. The guy won the IROC race against all the top Winston Cup drivers and proved right there that, yeah, he can win races. And I think proving here, not raced in this series, don't forget he is the 1994 Trans Am champion. Coming to this series, he's done a lot of testing, and he's proven he can run just as quick as he did before, and now he's really got some machinery underneath him.
He certainly does. Pat Patrick knows how to go about winning races and winning a championship. Obviously won the championship in the 1989 Indianapolis 500 with Emerson Fittipaldi, and then retired out of the sport for a couple of years, and now is back in it running the Firestone team with Scott Pruitt.
Rahal continues to shadow Michael Andretti, looking for that second place finish to boost him in the championship. Here in Australia with just under 4 laps to go right now. Michael Andretti doing everything he can to fend off. And here we ride on board with our leader, Paul Tracy.
And this will be a win for Lola by the looks of it, obviously, with Lola's in the first 4 positions. And obviously there was only one win by Lola last year, and last year was also the first year that Newman Haas did not win a race since the first time ever since entering IndyCar racing in 1983.
Newman Haas, one of the most dominant teams in the series. I said we're riding on board with Paul Tracy. Of course, we're riding on board with Michael Andretti, looking back at that battle to Bobby Rahal. 231 career starts for the Newman Haas team, and numerous wins for them. Mario Andretti has won the championship individually. Michael has won the championship individually for them. And now, of course, looking for another championship for that Newman Haas team. Newman Haas, really Carl Haas, every series he's run. In Can-Am in the old days, he won that championship. Formula 5000 with Brian Redmond, he won that championship. Very, very good team that Newman, now Paul Newman being a member of that team, but Carl Haas able to put together some great teams.
And not only is it a win from a team standpoint, but as a manufacturer, as we mentioned before, Carl Haas being the importer of Lola cars here in North America.
And if Carl Haas is not at an IndyCar race, you can bet he's at some track in North America somewhere where they may be running a Formula Ford Festival or any other vintage racing. He's out there and he's selling his Lola chassis, being the sole importer and distributor for Lola in North America. Bobby Rahal getting very close to Michael Andretti. Just 2 laps remaining. It's going to be tough. Michael Andretti certainly not an easy guy to pass either.
No, will make it things very, very difficult if you're trying to get past him or even get beside him. Coming back to Carl Haas, the latest place that he starts to hang his hat on race weekends these days is the Winston Cup races with John Andretti, and cousin to Michael. And now that the new Cronofis Haas team is out there, Carl Haas being a part owner with Michael Cronofis, in the sense that John Andretti is going Winston Cup racing, so something new for all that group. And
John Andretti's actually done very well in that Winston Cup racing. He ran very well at the Daytona 500. His last race he finished, or was running as high as 7th, finished 13th. John Andretti, a new learning curve for him on the Winston Cup circuit, and the whole team, in fact, but they're looking very strong, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them win a Winston Cup race before the season is over. As right now, Rahal tries to pick up 2nd position from Michael Andretti with just over a lap remaining here at Australia, round 2. They've had the white flag. Paul Tracy's clearly out in front, will pick up the win, but this is the battle right now for 2nd position. Oh, and Michael getting way up on the curb in there.
Very, very aggressive over the curbs right now, but you've only got a couple of laps left to go in this situation. This being the final lap, you know, he can take his gamble and go ahead and do that. Obviously trying to get through the turns as quickly as possible, so he's not going to allow Bobby Rahal an opportunity to maybe poke his nose there anywhere on this final lap. We talked before about Michael coming out of the turns a little slower than what we thought that he maybe should do, but we saw him merge onto the long front straightaway that last time when we saw that helicopter shot, and just no problem leaving Bobby Rahal going onto the front straight. So something very strange there. Getting very close to the wall on the exit of the turn, using up every inch of the racetrack. Doing just a great job going down the back straight here, 165, 70 miles an hour into this new chicane. You see just throwing the car around. Oh, and clipped the wall.
And he's taking off his right rear.
Taking off the right rear.
Oh, wow, Michael Andretti, that is just an absolute disaster for him. He led this race, he started from the pole. Paul Tracy finally got by him after the restart on the yellow, and then being, as you said, very aggressive, defending his 2nd place finish here. Got a little wild in that chicane, the car got thrown off, and he just clipped those tires. Paul Tracy takes the win here at Australia.
And a nice job by Paul. Representing the Nations Cup, giving Canada 20 more points, with the 20 points that went along with Jacques Villeneuve for winning Miami. Canada now leads the Nations Cup with 40 points. I hope that we have an opportunity this year to go ahead and add to that total. As he waves to the crowd, a good job, as Michael Andretti is going to sit dejected in his car, probably just in disbelief right now.
I would not be wanting to have dinner at the Michael Andretti camp this evening. I should think it would be...
2 races in a row where Michael clearly was the class of the field, clearly going to be a contender for the championship by the end of the year.
And now that's 2 races that he has gone out. At Miami, he made what could have been judged as a slightly aggressive, unnecessary overtaking maneuver. Here, Rahal comes by, he's probably going to pick him up and give him a ride home. And there we see also Robbie Gordon getting a ride home. So he was running at 10th at one point, so obviously the last moment he also had his problems. Paul Tracy taking his 9th career IndyCar win, first for the Newman Haas team, and Michael Andretti's going to be hating seeing that right there as they go by. And this will really tighten up the, obviously we're only in round 2, but well, really tighten up the championship. Here are the final results. Canadian Paul Tracy with that win. Bobby Rahal bumped up into 2nd position. Scott Pruitt takes 3rd. Mauricio Guzman is 4th. And his teammate, Danny Sullivan, with a 5th place finish. Great for the Pac West team.
And the first podium finish for Firestone Tires. As we see a replay again here of Michael Andretti clipping the wall. And you just hate things like that. There's no lower feeling, I'm sure, that Michael's feeling right now. I've lived through it. I've done it myself. And he's collecting a ride here with Bobby Rahal. And a lot of drivers getting an alternate ride back.
There you see Rahal consoling Michael Andretti as the 2 of the guys get the ride back. By my calculations, Bobby Rahal is now our PPG IndyCar Series leader with 30 points. Mauricio Guzman is 2nd with 28 points. In 3rd, Scott Pruitt with 26 points. And then down, we work our way through, I believe Jacques Villeneuve is 4th with 20 points. Our top 3 finishers come back to the finish line. A great race in Australia. It's going to be a great season. Scott Goodyear, thank you so kindly to you to joining us today. We look forward to seeing you back in a race car at Indy. And we look forward to bringing you live coverage on April 2nd at 4 p.m. of Phoenix to the Oval. For everyone at ESPN, I am Guy Hobbs saying so long. Be sure to join us in 2 weeks in Phoenix.